Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a topic that is seriously changing medicine for millions of people, biosimilars. Now, that's a word you're probably hearing more and more, and we're going to break down exactly what it means and why it matters to you.
You know this scene, right? You're at the pharmacy, and you get asked this exact question. And for most things, a headache, allergies, the choice between the brand name you know and the cheaper generic feels pretty simple.
And yeah, for a simple chemical pill like ibuprofen, it is a simple choice. A generic is just an exact, perfect carbon copy of the original. But when you start talking about the really advanced medicines, the ones used for complex chronic diseases, well, making a copy isn't simple at all. In fact, it's a whole different ballgame. To really get why, we first have to talk about this incredible class of drugs called biologics. These are not your average pills. People often call them living medicines because they go right to the source of disease on a biological level. Okay, so here's the big difference. Think of conventional drugs, the chemical ones, like a bicycle. They have a simple, defined structure. It's pretty easy to build an identical copy. Biologics, though, they're made from living cells. They are huge, thousands of times larger and way more complex. So it's not like comparing a bicycle to another bicycle. It's like comparing a bicycle to a space shuttle. So what makes these biologics such a game changer? Well, because they come from living sources. They can be designed to be like little guided missiles. They can target the very specific molecules that are causing a disease. So in something like rheumatoid arthritis, where your own immune system is attacking your joints, a biologic can go in and shut down just the troublemaking part of that attack, without knocking out your entire immune system. It's incredibly precise.
And this quote really says it all. Biologics have absolutely transformed the lives of people with these tough, chronic conditions. But all that complexity, it makes them unbelievably expensive to develop and produce. So what happens when the patent runs out?
And that is where our main character enters the story. The huge challenge of making affordable versions of these living medicines led to an entirely new kind of drug, the biosimilar.
This is the million-dollar question, right? And the short answer is you can't. You just can't make a perfect identical copy. Because biologics are grown in living cells, there's always going to be some tiny, natural variation between batches. The process itself means an exact replica is literally impossible.
So that brings us to the official definition, and you have to know every single word here was chosen very, very carefully. The US FDA says a biosimilar is a biological product that is highly similar to and has no clinically meaningful differences from an existing FDA-approved reference product.
Okay, this is the most important takeaway. A biosimilar is not a generic. It's not identical, but it has gone through a ton of rigorous testing to prove that it is highly similar in every important way. And the key phrase here is no clinically meaningful differences. That means when it comes to how safe it is, how pure it is, and how well it works in your body, there's no meaningful difference. It does the exact same job.
And as you can see from this timeline, this was not some rushed process. Regulators were super careful about this. Europe actually led the way, approving the first biosimilar way back in 2006. The US took its time, created a whole new legal pathway in 2009, and didn't approve its first one until 2015.
Now, the way a biosimilar gets approved is totally different from the original drug. The original biologic already spent years and years in trials proving it worked and was safe. The biosimilar's job isn't to prove all that science all over again. Its job is to prove through a whole battery of tests that it is basically a mirror image of the original. The entire focus is on showing its equivalent.
So, after all that science, why does this really truly matter? Well, it all boils down to two words that are incredibly important for patients and the whole healthcare system: access and cost. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Look at this. This is from the actual US law that created the pathway for biosimilars. The whole point, right from the start, was to create competition, give people more options, and hopefully bring down these incredibly high costs.
So, has that competition actually made a difference? Well, how about this number? Over the last decade, biosimilars have already saved the US healthcare system more than $12.6 billion. That is just a staggering figure.
And those savings aren't just an abstract number on a spreadsheet. They have a real-world impact. They can mean lower copays for patients. They can mean that health insurance plans are able to cover these life-changing treatments for more people who desperately need that. So let's really focus in and get specific. What does this mean for people with rheumatic diseases like rheumatoid arthritis? This is an area where biologics have been a miracle for so many, and now biosimilars are making that miracle available to even more people. Okay, this chart is where the rubber meets the road. For years, patients have known these big names, right?
Humira, Remicade. But now, look at this. There are multiple approved biosimilar versions for these drugs and for other major ones like Stelara, Rituxan, and Prolia. This is real competition. It gives doctors and patients a choice where, for a long time, there was no choice. All right, so if you're a patient, this right here is probably the most important slide for you. What's the takeaway? It's that you can have total confidence. If your doctor talks to you about switching to a biosimilar, you should expect the exact same treatment benefits, you should expect the same potential side effects, and it's even given the exact same way. If the original was an injection, the biosimilar is an injection. The clinical outcome and the experience are designed to be the same.
So where does all this lead? What does this new era of competition and access really mean for the future of how we treat these complex diseases?
And that brings us to our final question to think about. At their core, biosimilars are about one thing: making incredibly powerful medicine available to more people. So what happens next? With costs coming down and access going up, what other doors does that open? Could it mean doctors can treat diseases earlier and more aggressively? Could the billions of dollars in savings be funneled into finding the next breakthrough therapy? The future is definitely looking brighter and a lot more accessible, all thanks to this different kind of copy. Thanks for joining this explainer.